What's up, everybody? Arael Avinu here with Fully Deconverted, a content and discussion-based platform at Disenfranchising Dogma. Today, we're going to have on the show Andy Slater, and Andy is, like many of us, a former believer in God who became involved in secular affairs after being exposed to the other side of the God argument. That's certainly the way it was for me. That's the way it was for a lot of you out there. But before we get to Andy, I just want to let everybody know we just finished this weekend filming our series with Richard Carrier. So if you want to see a little bit more about what that's like, you can head over to Fully Deconverted on Facebook. Search for us. I think if you do Full Decon, we come up as a page. Actually, I don't know. Fully Deconverted, whatever. You'll find us on Facebook. Or you can head it over to fullydeconverted.com. All our social links are posted into there. And you can catch a little bit of Richard Carrier and I going live, just talking about a little this, little that. And but that will be a 10 episode series. So if you're a fan of Richard Carrier and or Fully Deconverted, make sure to check that out. Support. We have a GoFundMe as well. We're about halfway through our fundraising campaign. We'll be doing that, I think, for the remainder of this month, right until we launch, just to continue to cover production costs. But we definitely had enough to cover for Richard Carrier to come out here and do our initial filming. All right, if you want to check that out, go for it. Other than that, let's head over to our guest. Andy, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you've got going on.
I'm Andy Slater. I'm just an atheist activist who became passionate about the movement after seeing how differently you're treated once you say that you're an atheist. So I'm kind of more focused on just being present and being seen and letting people know who you are without feeling shamed.
Yeah, man, absolutely. That's man, I feel like that's exactly where my heart's at. When I started seeing the other side of things, or just how the engagement was occurring, I thought something was definitely wrong here when I was a Christian. Let everybody know, were you a former theist before?
Yeah, I grew up religious. I didn't go to church a whole lot, but I went for like Bible school and holidays and things like that. And I never really had any doubts clear up until my early 20s. So yeah, I was definitely a believer. I just wasn't super active in the church, but I did some youth group stuff and Bible school and things like that.
Okay, Andy, if you'll permit me, I'm going to throw you into the category of the everyday Christian. Does that sound right?
Sure.
Yeah. The everyday Christian. The everyday Christian is those of us who are exposed to Christianity through friends, family, our community members, and, we're involved somehow, and everything looks okay. And we do social events and we do gatherings and that sort of thing. And that's all great, right? Because we're building community. We're getting a sense of community, friendship, socializing, and that sort of thing.
Right.
And then some of us, right, Andy, like some of us start taking notice to things. Like there comes a point when you got to get serious or resign yourself to, this kind of moderate lifestyle, which is where most find themselves. or just decide, hey, this is all kind of like taking up my time in the wrong way. I'm just gonna respectfully back out because just a couple of rules. I like to drink, cuss, have sex, do drugs, or whatever it is that doesn't fit the culture of your particular religion or denomination. So, anyways, there comes a crux in our walk, and we make a decision. Andy, today, you're no longer a believer. Why did that crux happen? Why did you decide that?
I think what sparked it the most was a friend of mine. I didn't think I knew any atheists growing up. But a friend of mine, pretty close to my 21st birthday, told me he was an atheist. And I remember that was the first time I ever dealt with that, like mentally, even thinking about how you could, because I don't know, just before it was somebody who just wanted to, like you were saying, cuss and have sex, and that was their excuse for it or whatever. But
yeah,
anyway, he ended up passing away. And at his funeral, they had a preacher there, you know, speaking, giving the, I don't remember what the name of it's called, but you know, he's talking about him, and right off the bat, he starts mentioning the only way to heaven is through Jesus.
Mm.
And it's at my atheist friend's funeral.
Mm.
And I was bothered by it, but I was a Christian, so I did believe it, but it just kind of like, it hurt to hear. And then he talked a little bit more, and he said it again, that the only way to heaven is through Jesus. And now I'm kind of thinking, okay, is he doing like, does he know that my friend's an atheist? Like, this is, he shouldn't keep saying this. But he ended up saying it again and again and again. And by the fourth or fifth time that he said it, I realized that he was using my friend's funeral as a tool for his own like preaching. Like, he had to have known.
Yeah.
And that really annoyed me. It really, really frustrated me. But then it started sparking all kinds of questions in my mind, because he's a really good guy. He's like a really, really, really nice guy. So I started having to deal with like, why does he deserve to burn in hell whenever he's the kind of person that would give a stranger the shirt off his back?
Yeah.
So then I came up with this hypothetical that I started just asking everybody. I became obsessed with asking everybody like a handful of questions. And one of them was, you know, like, if there's the sweetest lady you've ever met in your entire life, you know, she gives the charity, you know, nobody's perfect, but try to imagine as close to humanly perfect as you can imagine. But she doesn't believe. She deserves to burn and be tortured in hell for eternity.
Mm.
But then somebody who is the equivalent of Hitler, if he genuinely repents and like, you know, genuinely repents, he deserves to go to heaven. And that really bothered me. So I started asking how everybody feels about that. And nobody ever had any good answers. And I thought that a lot of my family and friends knew a lot more about my own belief than I did. So I was asking them. They didn't have any good answers. I asked a couple preachers. They also didn't have any good answers. One of them just had me repeat after him and then told me I was saved, and he left. So yeah, that's kind of what kicked it off.
Man, you know, it's those disingenuous moments where people are claiming certainty about something so profound, something, I mean, extravagant, that causes us to realize in a moment of proper and authentic reflection that, man, the hell am I doing here? What is everybody doing here? What's going on? What is this conversation actually about? Here we are. Someone is dead. And our best response to a very appropriate line of questioning in our religious culture is, I don't know. In the military, Andy, we would call it the semen salute. Semen is, I was in the Navy, so semen is a rank. You know, it's not other things. So seaman and below, it's like 1, 2, 3. Your first 3 ranks, you're just called a seaman. And then after that, you're called a petty officer, and so on. All right, now that I've cleared some of that up, the person who doesn't know what the hell is going on, they give what we call the seaman salute. Hey, sailor, what's going on here? And they go, that's the seaman salute. I don't know. And that I did the same thing, Andy. I was asking those questions because I was sincerely wanting to know, how did we arrive here? And how do we know where we're going? And when I hear your story, you know, it hits me right there all over again. I mean, I feel like I'm still there. You know, I feel like I had to leave my community, and they were no close to even being any more curious about answering those questions. Why, Andy? Why is everybody satisfied with the seaman salute?
I don't know. I know that the first time I ever dealt with death, whenever I was really young, I was actually confused why everybody was sad, because it was my understanding they're in a better place. So I didn't understand why everybody wasn't celebrating.
Yeah.
But you're a pretty fresh atheist, right? Like around a year or less or something, or
yeah, a little less than a year.
Yeah. So I know you said that you still feel like you're kind of there. I don't know if you dealt with this or not, but like I know a lot of other atheists who talk about how, you know, whenever they deconverted or whatever, they felt all free, and
Mm,
it was like this wonderful feeling. I
mm,
felt terrible
mm.
whenever I realized it, because it felt extremely lonely. Like I thought, like, there aren't any humans who completely understand me,
Yeah.
but God does. Every experience that I've ever been through, every thought I've ever had, He knows it all. He completely understands me. So that going away was like really terrible. But then you get over it over time. I don't know. You saying you being a pretty fresh atheist just made me think of that.
You're exactly right. I have felt exactly the same thing. I'm 100% with you, Andy. Yeah, I know the feeling. I know the feeling because you know, when you find yourself kind of coming to the ridge, the ledge where you know, man, a couple more steps and I'm
Yeah,
done with this Christianity thing. Like, how much further is God gonna allow this process of uncertainty to take place? You know, before He says, "Oh, okay, 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 I'm here. I'm here, and everything's gonna be good." Hey, listen, you really pushed the limits of knowledge and scrutiny and, you know, intellectual discovery and inquisitiveness and curiosity. Like, you're a well-defined human being. You're healthy. You know, thank you for pursuing me. By the way, I was never going to let you walk off that ledge. Here I am,
yeah,
and yeah, I'm here. You know, that's something like that is what we're hoping for when we see, when we know, when we realize the edge is coming.
yeah,
And then what? And then when you get there to the ledge, like, you realize nobody came to save you. And the only thing down there is a life that you know nothing about. But that life is the life that you're choosing for yourself. That life is the life where there must be answers there. And if there's no answers there, there's no answers anywhere, because it seems black or white. It seems this or that. It seems value reality or don't value reality, value knowledge or don't value knowledge. You know, there's so many opposites when it comes to faith, flipping the meaning of English words, actually. Um, Man, I get that. No, I totally felt that. You know, there were times growing up when I would scream out to God, pray, you know, all this stuff, and you really feel like nobody knows me better. And sometimes, Andy, now that looking back on that, I think, well, of course nobody knew me better. That was me knowing myself.
right.
That was me reflecting on my own image.
Yes, yes,
How do you feel? How do you feel now, man? Like, I love that you said that, by the way, because that I don't think I've ever heard that, not one time,
yeah,
from anybody on the show. And I'm so glad you said that, because it is real. It's real and it's intense. Might vary from, you know, deconvert to deconvert,
yeah.
but that is an important part to acknowledge. How do you feel now?
I'm not the slightest bit bothered. I've completely accepted it. It
Yeah,
just took a while. You know,
yeah,
at first it was rough, and then over time, it's just normal. I kind of did the same thing with, you know, believing in ghosts and stuff. Like I still like
yeah.
I didn't believe, but I still was like, I'm not gonna go into that haunted house though. Like all hypocritical about it. But even that, like that has faded about right along with my with that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, same here. Like, going along the deconversion process and watching other religions and seeing the things that they're superstitious about. You know, just reflecting on that kind of the whole way. It's like, wait a minute, nah, nothing. There's nothing here. We're good.
Yep.
um, so, can you please describe a little bit what it's like for someone to deconvert from their religion and then find their way into an activist community? Which, do I understand correctly? Are you you're involved in different communities or groups? I believe one thing that I read about you was Secular Student Alliance. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
At first I okay, so the big transformation actually that kind of happened with me deconverting, we'll use that word, um, was I actually thought I finally found the answers I was looking for on YouTube through a couple YouTubers. There was like Jesus Freak and Together for Peace. They're Christian YouTubers, and I was like, oh wow, they actually have really good answers. Like I finally, like I actually thought like faith was being restored.
Yeah.
But then I made the mistake of clicking on the videos that they were responding to, and those were the YouTube atheists, and they ended up flipping everything around. But I ended up going to a couple of their meetups. They had a couple YouTube atheist meetups, which got me like I don't know, I just really enjoyed meeting like-minded people who were going through the same thing or had answers that I was looking for. And then that carried on to me being addicted to going to conferences, atheist conferences. And at the Reason Rally in 2012, they encouraged to be part of local groups, like to, you know, encouraged building a local community or being part of a local community. And the closest one to me is 2 hours away. So in desperation to find something close, I actually got a hold of the Secular Student Alliance, and I wasn't a student. But they told me that they have community members too. And it felt awkward because, you know, it's a group for students and I'm just a community member, but I did it anyway. And I'm actually really happy I did, because I feel a whole lot more useful there than any of the other little communities I tried, because everywhere else it's just kind of like I go and I listen to people talk and then I drive 2 hours home. But the Secular Student Alliance, it's a bunch of broke college kids and I have time and money, so I can actually help.
Yeah, absolutely. Why are you using the term useful? Do you believe that this is part of the narrative of someone who deconverts from a religion and then seeks out another community? Do you think that that's a common thread or theme in this cultural transition?
I think at least at first, I mean, you probably have a good idea about this. I mean, you jumped right into like doing the show.
Yeah.
But I think, like, I know that whenever I first realized I was an atheist, I think I was just really, really passionate about it, because I feel like, you know, I've been living a lie for the last however many years, and I kind of wanted to talk people out of that. Now the goal of changing people's minds has kind of gone away. Now I just like having the conversation. I just like trying to clear up misconceptions and be seen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about where I'm at also. David Martin over in the live feed. Hi, David, by the way, is asking an important question. I think it fits right into the narrative that we're discussing right now. David asks, I'm new to the channel. Why is it stylized D/converted? My shirt is backwards here, but you can see fully deconverted. And so part of Andy, my part of the conversation is to draw awareness to the issue, one, that it exists, and the issue is there are things that we can talk about, there are things that we can't talk about. There are things that are incontrovertibly true, and then there are things that we're allowed to ask questions on and speculate as to the veracity of the claim.
Yeah.
Andy, as you know, there's going to be some persons of faith who declare that the truth of the Bible is incontrovertible. It can't be challenged. And that's also why the back of the shirt here, I'm gonna turn around if I can. Again, it's gonna be backwards, okay? Maybe you can see it. Disenfranchising dogma. Anyways, all right, now that anyways, so disenfranchising dogma. So there's no authority on truth except for truth itself. So instead of branding our source of our conversation as another dogma, what we did is we just drew attention to the process. And David, this is for you as well over in the live stream. When you go from religion to religion, or no religion to religion, or a religion to no religion, or you're just flopping around with ideas, you can be fully converted to an idea or fully deconverted from an idea. And the idea that I'm deconverted from is dogma, is the incontrovertible issues. I don't accept that anymore. And I doubt, Andy, the minister that was maybe giving the eulogy at your friend's funeral, I doubt that he saw that the same way. He probably thought it was incontrovertibly true that Jesus is the only way to a happy life after one's body dies. Now, the important question there to ask, and let me know if you agree with me, Andy. The important question there to ask in anyone's mind at that time is, how do you know that?
Yeah.
What do you think that minister would have said if the mother of your friend would have spoke up and said, "Minister, help me out"? How do you know that? What do you think the minister would have said?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably has some something already in mind to say. I'm not sure what. I mean, probably just defaulting to the, well, I know because I know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's about what I've got out of every, and I've been elbows to elbows with ministers for many years, and I'll tell you what I always get and what I hear the conversation always being had is, it says it right here.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I'm like, yeah, it does say it right there. But yeah, that actually doesn't bring home the bacon though. Like, it just doesn't, because that's the same metric that someone believing in their own ideologies in another religion uses to give it its authority. Right? It says it right there. Okay, so if it's written down in the books that we've chosen as our holy scriptures, must it be true? Or can we apply a level of scrutiny to it and then see where we go from there? And just use the evidence that holds up. That's it. That's okay. Is that okay, everybody? And then everybody's like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, you know, we have a new generation of atheists. That's just kind of the way it turns out, right? Andy, you kind of already touched on it a little bit, but what was another important question that was always in your mind at the time when you were going through your deconversion process?
This wasn't as important as the hypothetical, but the only one that I can remember is I became curious on how everybody saw God. I guess this isn't really a question as far as the doubting stuff goes, but it was, I was curious. I would tell everybody, and I didn't want them to have time to think about it. I would say, all right, God appears in front of you right now. What do you see? And I actually got so many different answers. I expected to get much different answers. Most people described Jesus, and then they would take a second to think and be like, oh wait, no, that's Jesus. And then it would change, and it would either be, you know, like an old guy with white hair, or somebody, or a lot of people would say pure energy or light, or things like that. That was just kind of another fun question I asked everybody.
Why do you think they gave different answers? All that variety, and I've heard the same thing.
Yeah.
Why do you think we or used to would say things like that?
I don't know how much thought people put into some of those things. I think that's why a lot of people, whenever I asked them, they changed their answer after they thought about it, because they at first were just kind of, I don't know, taken out of their zone, and like, I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to see.
Yeah. I've heard a couple interesting sides. Let me know if you've heard these. God isn't a man, even though you have God revealing himself as a man throughout the entire chronology of the Bible. God doesn't have a hand. You know, God is this I forgot the term, but it's like a Platoism, whatever. It's a term I forgot. But in Plato's world, the real is the immaterial. that thing which we can't interact with. That's
Yeah.
the real, and the rest of us are kind of like shadows of reality, that sort of thing. You know, and that's closer to the idea of God, actually. You can't see God, you'll die. Okay, so anyways, what was I saying? What is God? So God is either nothing, none of these things. You can't contain God in any image, or Jesus. If you've seen Jesus, or if you know Jesus, Jesus is all you need to see. No, blah 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 blah. Jesus is everything God. Have you heard the God is nothing or God is Jesus?
Yeah.
Yeah. It always made me think, because I'm like, no, God, you know, God put his hand in front of Moses and then walked away. You know, if only God would do that for me, right? Like, come on, man, just throw your hand in front of my face. It's all cool. I don't got to see your mug, and you can walk away from me. I'm imagining like a giant out of God of War or something, you know, walking away. That'll be good. Then we know there's something, right?
Yeah.
I would have been good with that. So it's interesting that everybody would give their own kind of, oh, God is like this, God is like that. And I kind of did the same thing as far as asking a lot of questions, going through my deconversion journey. Did you ever challenge anybody on any of their answers? Did you ever like kind of hard press on them?
Not usually. I mean, I would tell them some of the answers that other people gave. I actually think it made them think about those answers. Like, not just with that, but I mean, you know, and how they felt about the hypothetical and things like that. And I don't know. I think I made a lot of people think at the beginning. What's funny is, when I was thinking about stuff, I accidentally, I think, sparked a few other journeys too, because there are a few people where at the place I worked, I talked to coworkers about that stuff. At the place I worked, there were people who were believers whenever I asked that question. And then by the time I found myself calling myself an atheist, they were too.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how would you characterize those persons who would have been atheist with you after the fact, or excuse me, before the fact? How would you characterize them? Were they they're at the altar down crying or dancing or Holy Spirit or Bible thumping, or were they kind of like passive on their walk as well? Or?
Yeah, they were pretty passive.
Yeah.
I did talk to a couple people who were much more involved, and that's whenever I first started seeing the way people were treated, because I wasn't even an atheist yet. I was just asking questions.
Yeah.
And there were a couple old ladies who used to sit to me. They just stopped talking to me.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah, and I wasn't even a non-believer. I was in question asking mode. I was like, I don't understand this, I don't understand that. They just distanced themselves from me.
Man, you're throwing me back into PTSD right now, man. Like, that's what happened to me. I started asking just regular, honest questions that they should have been asking and tackling and bringing to the front of the conversation for anybody willing to take their faith to the next step. Go on, Andy.
Yeah, I think it might be scary if you don't think of those questions. Maybe you don't want to address them. Like, I don't know.
And then anybody else distance themselves from you? So a few old ladies, you know. Okay, so we got the periphery there of, you know, some of the group.
Yeah, I mean, that gave me the warning, so I knew whenever I did stop believing, that I didn't know how out to be about it with close family and friends. So like I kept it away from like my parents for a while. Whenever I finally did, I didn't like sit down and tell them, but whenever, you know, they knew, I definitely got the opposite of what I expected. I expected one of them to be more accepting about it and the other one to be less, and I ended up being the opposite. So that was pretty interesting. But yeah, like I had 2 separate Facebook accounts and everything just to try to keep, because I was becoming very active in the atheist communities and, you know, talking to people, and and I wanted to friend them on Facebook, but I was afraid of what they would post or afraid of what I would comment, and
Yeah.
and friends and family were going to see. That was years ago, though. It's blended a lot today. I still use them both, but they've blended into each other. I'm more open about it to friends and family now.
Andy, would you consider yourself a fully out non-believer?
Yes. The only hesitation that I do have sometimes is because I know that I have certain family members who are just not okay with it. I spent extra money on magnets to put my bumper stickers on, so that way I can take them off whenever I go over to their house. I have signs up in my living room that make it clear that I'm a non-believer. I'll take those down if an insurance adjuster comes over or something like that. And anybody who, if it could affect my well-being in some way,
yeah,
I'm just gonna avoid those. But for the most part, I mean, the bumper stickers stay on and the posters stay up when friends come over and things like that.
So you frequent a lot of these atheist activists events and conferences, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've probably caught on to a bit of the culture that says you need to be out loud and proud about being the atheist. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like you're out loud and proud.
Yeah.
So, and we all are kind of on that spectrum somewhere. Whether some of us hide it or some of us are truly firebrand. Why do we exist on a spectrum? Why are we afraid to sometimes reveal to friends, family, close ones, loved ones, acquaintances, people coming into our home for the first time, having that first conversation? Why is this sometimes making us nervous or anxious?
Because a lot of people still don't understand or aren't accepting of it. I know, I did end up. How should I put this? I caused a lot of community issues because I turned a church state issue in to American Atheists, and they had a monument removed from my local area, and I got to see how many people responded with how they wanted to know who I am and making threats and things like that, because I was anonymous through the whole process. It was on Fox News, on Tucker Carlson. It ended up becoming a really big deal. They got tons of threats. So that's one reason I'm a little weird about it. Obviously I'm saying it now on a show that might end up getting around, but I don't know. I'm open everywhere else with just the knowledge of that it could cause me issues locally.
Is any of that for a concern of your present employment?
Oh no, my boss is awesome.
Okay, all right. That makes me feel better just hearing that. So
yeah. Now my concern originally was I was working somewhere else before all of this kicked off. I remember worrying about how that was going to affect me, because I worked with a lot of really religious people, and also there are people who were defending me online, and they were having their jobs threatened just for defending me. I know a bartender who was told, if you don't stop commenting on these things and stuff like that, I'm gonna have to get rid of you because there's people calling in who are mad. And yeah, no, so even just for defending me, it was an issue.
Well, where do you live? I might
know
a
local area, a small community.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had never mind. I won't go into that. It's obviously not the same person. Okay. Yeah, I hear you. I did come out loud and proud when I did. It was nerve-wracking. I mean, it was an all or nothing scenario, and so I get it. And I think I just did that because, God damn it, man. I believed this thing for all my life. Andy, I put my all into it. There were several times when I staked all my relationships on it. And when when it wasn't panning out when it was supposed to. I needed to know that if I'm going to sacrifice any more, in other words, everything again, for the rest of my life and for the rest of my childhood, 20s, all my prime years, I'll be 80 and then I'll be one of those guys that mentored me with that long look on their face because they're so ashamed of what they did when they were a young man, when they were a Christian. And they did that horrible sexual thing. They cheated on their wife, or they had adultery, or, pornography, or, because that's what it is with us men, right? Our problem is lust and all this sexual immorality. And our wives are just, get your act together, Christian man, you need to lead this home and be a model for your children, and that whole sort of thing. And so that's all I seen. And I'm like, man, I'm going to be one of those 80-year-old guys. Don't be like me, Sonny, making all these mistakes. I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be the person who got it together, who asked the hard questions and got so deep in my faith and theology that I would be able to exemplify the power of God, the power of Christ, and make it apparent to those around me, right? Like that's the goal. And that's the same goal that everybody claims is unachievable. And then God never showed, right? So go big or go home. I'm like, listen, and I investigated, man, for like a year. And I said, hey, you guys got nothing. I mean, I'm a part of you guys. I'm in your face. You guys are in my face. We're in this community together, but you guys are giving me nothing. What's more is you guys are patronizing each other. You guys are shaking hands, smiling, praying about cancer, sending good weather wishes, doing small groups, complaining about how ashamed and broken and everything that's wrong with you. But hey, we're all in it together, so let's have pride in that. No? That was the culture that I was battling up against, where there should have been all the answers, right? So you're asking yourself, why the paradox? And so, Andy, I went loud and proud with it. I was doing documentaries at the time, and I came out. And I said, this is me. And then, but Andy, just like you, people were already distancing themselves because we don't like to be asked the questions. We don't like the sounding board that reveals in us the fact that we simply don't know. And that uncertainty makes us even more afraid, given 20 years of investment, 30 years, 40, 50 years, $100,000, tithes and offerings. And then here comes a person like Andy who says, you know what? Something didn't make sense. I'm asking questions, and if things don't add up, I'm going somewhere where it might add up. Andy, tell me about that bench.
So, geez, it's probably like 5 or 6 years ago now. I was walking through a park, and all I remember at the time was seeing a bench that said, men who aren't ruled by God men who aren't governed by God will be governed by tyrants. And I remember I was an atheist, but I was annoyed by it, and I snapped a picture of it, and I didn't really think much of it for a while. And at one of the conferences I was at, there were people giving talks on having monuments removed from parks that were unconstitutional, and like 10 Commandments at schools and things like that. And I was having a conversation outside in the hall, and I remembered that picture I took, and I still had it on my phone. So I pulled it up and showed somebody. And at first they were encouraging me to turn it in. And I didn't like the idea, because I just got done hearing 2 different people talking about all the threats they got, and all the, community uproar, and they lost family and friends over it. And so it wasn't attractive to me at first.
Yeah.
But then it ended up bothering me for about a month, and I ended up posting the picture online to see what other people were saying about it. And other people kind of encouraged me to go see what else was in the area. Anyway, I went back, and I found out it was part of a veterans memorial. And at first it scared me more to do anything to do about it. But then I actually ended up completely switching to being I don't like the word offended, but I was offended by it, because my dad was in Vietnam, and when he came back, I remember everybody, like, the treatment they got was, you know, they were spit in their face and they were treated like crap. And then I remembered, again, the Reason Rally in 2012. There was a guy from the army there who was talking about how in a lot of situations and like monuments like that and stuff, it feels like they're still being spit in their face, because the bench is kind of implying that, you know, it's for the religious veterans, but, you know, the ones who weren't believers, you know, they're not worth the honor and respect. So so yeah, that annoyed me that there was that exception being made. So then I went ahead and followed through with it, and by the next day I was talking to American Atheists, and then I was hoping it wouldn't be super public because of that little bit of fear that I had about the way everything would go down. But I actually thought they might have made it smooth, because they offered to buy a replacement bench. Like, they were going to spend $6,000, whatever it was, dollars on buying another. I don't remember what it was made out of, like granite or something like that. And they were going to allow the city to pick any quote they wanted, just as long as it wasn't exclusive, you know, to one religion or anything like that. So anyway, I thought it was going to go well, but then it came out in the paper. It said VFW tells atheist group no. And every day for the next couple months, there were letters to the editor. It was in the paper several more times. It was on the news. It was on Fox News. And it was right after the presidential election in 2016. So everybody's already super emotional and ready to fight. And so it was scary back then.
So you say scary. All right, paint the picture. So were you still seeing yourself as the face of kind of this controversial issue, and then had fear for yourself because of that? Or did you feel safe? What was your feelings?
I think I should have felt safer than I did. I think that just seeing the reaction seemed a lot scarier than it really was. Like, a lot of the things people say are just, you know, people say a lot of hateful things online that they don't actually mean to do, or, you know, death threats a lot of times aren't real. Like, I was being more paranoid, I think, than I needed to be.
Well, that's where our mind goes, right? I mean, when we have an issue that we disagree on, especially if it's one, you know, that's possibly worthy of contention, you know, we throw our ideas out there, right? And without seeing the face of the victim, you know, we might go full force with it. Yeah. And then before you know it, you know, you might have a small little community behind this this force. And then before you know it, you know, you might have a social movement behind this force. And then before you know it, you either have a social, you know, movement like the Me Too, or anything else that we've covered in social politics, really, you know what I'm getting at here. I mean, we fight over wars, or ideas, with wars, with money, with human sacrifice, you know, all this sort of thing. So ideas can be very compelling. They can be very motivating, inspiring, and all it takes is a few solid voices to get behind them. And that usually solidifies kind of what the Fellowship of the Ring is, what I'm thinking of now. You know, you got a true mission going on here, and people can get behind it. Things can become violent, or they can't. You know, it only takes that one person to act before a tragedy occurs. Now, I'm with you. I think our fear just jumps a few levels. Yeah, I think so. But all it takes is that one person who thinks that they're doing the will of God to protect the sanctity of the VFW's lawn. You know, to perform an action that might not have a holistic outcome, considering all that there is to consider. So did that die down then pretty well? Was there some resolve to it that seemed satisfactory to everybody, or or is everybody still looking for the angry atheist causing all this ruckus?
Oh, they were still mad about it, but they ended up having a big celebration when it did move, because eventually the city council and everybody made the right decision, because they knew they wouldn't win in court, because obviously the next step would be going to court, because, well, they said no at first, they weren't going to respond, but then they got a deadline like, well, if you don't do anything, we're going to take you to court. And they saw that it would be expensive, and I think they knew that they wouldn't win. So
American Atheist is good for that. They're good for, yeah.
And they were really nice. Like, they were even, supportive whenever I was being nervous about getting weird friend requests and things like that, of thinking people figured me out. Even their tone actually changed on my fear. At first they were like, well, I wouldn't really be too afraid, but then later on they were like, you should probably go ahead and stay anonymous. But I still regret it though. Like, there were so many, like, they told me not to pay attention to things online, but that's all I did every day, is read what everybody was saying about it. And there were tons of arguments being made, and a whole lot of speculation about the reason why I'm doing things or what I think about things. I just wanted to jump in and answer, but it's like, and I regret it. I wish I would have, but I was too nervous back then.
So how long have you been involved in activism now? I'm not clear on the timeline that you painted before, but for how many years have you been involved in atheist activism presently?
At least since 2012. Probably a little before that, but I mean, I never really got involved with like the Secular Student Alliance and things like that until about 2012.
Is it a dead-end street? Do you enjoy it? Do you see real, authentic change or development? Is it kind of a question mark above your head the whole time about what kind of difference or impact we're having on the community? Can you characterize your experience with activism?
I keep wanting to get more and more involved. Like, I just started a local community recently, seeing how that catches on, if there's enough people around to actually make that worth it. I don't know. I mean, even just the, like, the beginning, whenever I started becoming more open, like whenever I'm very open, it was just that there were little bubbles around, like, family and the fear of the local community thing. But I mean, everywhere else, like coworkers, friends, people I meet, like, I have no shame in coming out to them. But I liked the effect, especially at first, where if you tell somebody that you're an atheist and they have but you're such a nice guy. So I think that that's the first step in them dealing with they're not these terrible, horrible creatures that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's why I think even just being seen, even just bumper stickers, even just showing up at rallies and conferences and meeting people through the Secular Student Alliance and doing tabling, and we did send an atheist to church. That was a lot of fun.
Tell me about that, because I've not heard of that. So what is that?
Well, it was kind of inspired by a while ago. Hemant Mehta, the Friendly Atheist, he sold his soul online, where it was, I don't remember how the details were, but I think it's like the amount of money that he was won for. He'd spend that much time in church of the person's choice. So we ended up doing, we ended up doing a fundraiser for the Secular Student Alliance for however, every $10 we raised, one of us would go to a church and then we would talk about it. So then we'd post our experiences and we would talk to the Christian group at the university about it too. And my favorite experience with that was actually our local Presbyterian church gave us a large donation if we would come and talk at, they had kind of like not a Bible study, but like a book club or whatever. And so they had like 30 people there, and another student and I went in just to answer a bunch of questions. And I thought that was awesome, because not only they enjoyed asking tons of questions that they probably don't feel comfortable asking friends and family who are atheists, or maybe they don't even know any atheists. But also it's eye-opening for me, because like we will progress through all these thoughts over time, but they're still stuck at the like, I don't understand, how can you not believe in God but you worship the devil? Like questions like that. And,
Yes.
you know, to us that's really weird and confusing, but to them it's a genuine, like, wait a minute, you're devil worshippers. How can you, you know, God made the devil. How do you not believe in God and you believe in the devil? So then you would have to explain what seems dumb to you of the, well, we don't believe in the devil. That's one of those things to say about us, but yeah, we don't believe in any of that.
Man, that sounds like a great experience. I love that. So immediately as you're talking about this, I'm seeing the value of what you do and what you've done. Because I know, Andy, I would have been one of those persons. I would have been one of those Christians who'd have been like, Andy, pick me, Andy. Hey man, what do you think about marriage? What do you think about abortion? Man, that's a tough one. It's a tough one, right? Almost no matter what side of the fence you're on, like there's trouble to be had on any periphery, right?
Yeah.
Man, I would have loved to have asked you questions, you know, just to poke and see what the other side of the fence is like.
Yep.
I'm still new to a lot of kind of what everybody has their hands into. But that's also, I think, the first time I've heard something like that, you know, with that kind of community involvement, with opportunities of engagements.
Yeah, it was great for them too. I think they enjoyed it more than I did, and I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. That must have been a blast. Yeah, you know, if I was the church, I would have marketed that, you know, and made sure everybody came. You know, hey, we got refreshments in here. The atheists are setting up outside. You better go ahead and go have your seats, and then we'll bring the atheists in, and they'll tell us about what they think and believe. And so you go grab your lemonade and just make sure you ask them appropriate questions. Don't talk too much about sex and masturbation. Can you hear me when I whisper into my microphone, Andy?
But there.
Andy, can you hear me? Could you hear me the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyways, I would have loved an event like that. That would have been really cool. I'm glad that you did that and that you had that experience. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if like the minister's nervous in times like that. Like, do they have any kind of anxiety? What did you sense off the ministers who were kind of hosting that? Andy, do I got you on here? Can you hear me?
The video froze on my end.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yeah.
All right, cool. So what was your read on the ministers who were hosting that event? Andy, come back to me. Andy. Andy's having technical difficulties. Or maybe it's not Andy. It could be our local internet service provider.
I
hope we got the chime in here.
He before we started,
man, that's coming in chopped up. Have
a discussion and be really fair. You know, we're not here to debate. We're just against them.
I heard that. We're not here to debate.
Right now.
Hey, what's up, man? Okay, we're all over the place, guys. Ladies and gentlemen.
I hear you just strung out.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely came in all chopped up and lingering. Anyways, all right. So we've gone at about time right now. We'll go ahead and wrap this interview with all our lag.
What my opinion is on ministers.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That is freaky. Andy, just tell me if you're live right now by counting to 3 really quick.
I think I'm getting you a little better now. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, that is some serious lag. Andy, don't hate me. I'm gonna disconnect you. You can come back in. Just come back in.
Oh no.
Disconnecting you, Andy. I don't actually just realized I don't know how to disconnect you. Guys, this has turned into a fun house. You didn't think you were gonna see a show like this. Andy, I don't even know how to disconnect you, but you might be best if you come back in. And I don't even know if you can hear me live. Can you hear me live right now? Count down for 3. Nope. Nope. Andy, can you hear me now? All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Maybe Andy will come back in. All right. For those who just sat through that last 5 minutes, congratulations. But I can't help but wonder, and Andy is gone. He might come back on. I can't help but wonder what the ministers were thinking at the point of, hey, we have some atheists in here. Let me take that back for just a second. I think the ministers are 100% confident that, maybe not 100%. Let me just go to the far right on this issue. The ministers are 100% confident that they will end up looking or are secure in their faith and what they have trust in. And that the atheists may or may not look a bit silly when they try to explain their worldview or paradigm about issues looking through their lens, through which only casts value or projects value onto the environment around believers when they look through it. In other words, that was kind of weird, right? But in other words, believers are going to struggle to see the value in the things which atheists find valuable. Because the only thing believers are taught to have value in, if we're to speak to dogma, note, it has to be seen through the lens of faith. If you don't have the lens of faith and you look at the world bare-eyed, bare-naked, you're just going to see it for what it is. And what it is sometimes cold, sometimes harsh, sometimes not giving you that quality story or a narrative that you've been taught to take in so warm-heartedly. And sometimes that's life. And sometimes the only meaning and value that we find in the world around us is that which we give it, is that which we agree on. Andy, I see your icon popping back up in here. Are you live with us, man? Andy, are you with us? To those who don't know, I can see Andy's icon pop back up as though he's re-entered the conversation. So he must have just heard my voice a really long time ago, back 10 minutes ago when we were doing the Matrix thing. And it looks like it's going to do more of the same presently. Andy, are you present? You guys can probably hear him in the background. Andy, you present, my friend? Hello. Not working out. All right. Anyways, I'm gonna shoot over to the comments here for just a little bit and see what we got going on. I know you guys usually have like a lot of cool things that you say. I see some discussion on the Facebook group. That is a great place. Hey, listen, I thought I was the smartest guy in my community just for asking questions and applying a little bit of common sense to what I thought the answers should be, just simply because nobody would engage with it. I'm like, come on, I can't be the only guy here, right? And then I start fully deconverted, and everybody starts coming in, and I see their conversations. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, people are smart. People are smart. Where are they all at? Where were they at when I was deconverting? You know, obviously I didn't know anything about discussions like these or where to find atheists or that sort of thing. But people in the Fully Deconverted Facebook group, a discussion on facts and faith, that's an incredible group, guys. If you see that, so go over there. If you're a person that values discussion at all, that is one of the best Facebook groups that I've ever seen regarding this topic. I try to be careful when I say the best, because that's what I actually mean. But I have some people on sometimes that I talk to, and they have their own Facebook discussion groups. And one time I said that, I'm like, the best discussion. And that person's like, don't worry, I'm not offended. And I'm like, I should be mindful that other people have Facebook groups too. So anyways, yeah, David Martin, go check it out, my friend. I'd love to see you in there. From what I gather from what you're saying, a lot of us are in the same position, David, where they can't bounce those ideas around like what you're talking about. And they need that kind of community, if even just to discuss the things that we're thinking about. What else we got over here? Give us a little preview. Of the Richard Carrier interviews. Hey, awesome, David. You just signed up. That's awesome. Eric Morton wants a little preview of the Richard Carrier interviews. So I am still at the organizing phase of all the elements. You know, one of the jobs as an editor or producer or whatever, after everything is get filmed, is get organized. If you don't do that, it's chaos the whole way. So I'm still in the organizing phase. But if I take you to mean, Eric, that you want me to talk about it a little bit, let's do. So Richard Carrier came for a week. Fully Deconverted flew Richard Carrier into Norfolk, Virginia. And this was all crowdfunded, by the way. We raised just shy of $2,000 to be able to finance our upfront costs. We're still trying to raise $2,000 more for the rest of our production costs, marketing, and all the things that go into just making a great series. But we're at expenses right now. We're good. We're breaking even. And if you guys want to find that, just go to GoFundMe, Richard Carrier, Fully Deconverted, Arael Avinu. You'll find it, or it'll be in this link or another video. Okay. Anyways, he came in, and then the first full day that we were here, we filmed 20 minutes per topic of Richard Carrier laying down his content on topics such as Bayesian counter-apologetics, the historicity of Jesus, ancient culture and science, political divides. That's 4. There's one more. What am I missing? And positive atheism. So there you go. If you're in this chat right now, those are the 5 things, the 5 categories that we talked about. Not only did he lay down that, and we filmed that in the beautiful Slover Library in downtown Norfolk, which is just down the street. I live downtown. It's just down the street right here that you see in the background. Beautiful library. In fact, you'll start seeing pictures. You'll see pictures of that right now of us in there, but they're pictures of him. And then after that, the day after that, we filmed our interview portion, which went on for over 2 hours. So I don't think all that interview will make it into the series. I might do a couple of pay-to-play type things where, hey, if you guys really want to see this, I'll produce it and I'll put it over here and you can find it, but it won't be in the official series. It'll be like an extra. Um, and then the third day was storytelling elements, which is where we build the story. We do a little docu-style walk around, see some sights, go on a Viking ship, talk about technology, film our credits, thank our donors, do photo shoots, go to all these different places. That's what it was like. If you guys want to know what Richard Carrier is like, Richard Carrier is an educated person. Okay, that's kind of one of the first things you'll find when you start holding a discussion with him. You ever know one of those persons that just kind of has something of substance to say on just these random topics? That's what it felt like having a conversation with Richard Carrier. We would talk about, and we talked about all kinds of different things. I mean, we're hanging out a lot. We're filming a lot. We talked about a lot of personal things, a lot of like business oriented things with the activism. And Richard's just got going on. Now, obviously, he's on tour a lot, so he's engaged in these ideologies and discussion always, it seems. But we talked about some personal things too, and just maybe feeling each other out or just getting comfortable or nice and relaxed. And for a person like me, it's very refreshing to have a conversation with Richard. Knowing that just a year ago, I was producing film for churches and their strategic partners. So there's one narrative out there in life, and that's certainly one. And then there's another narrative in life where it can be anything but that religious dogmatic one. And so when I have conversations with persons like Richard, I'm very well pleased and excited and refreshed to hear perspectives from persons who have values that seem almost nothing like the Abrahamic religion values. And so there was some discussion there. What else? Man, we had some drinks together. Hey, thanks, Eric. You love the R and Raw series. I got the live chat open here on the side. Hey, yeah, man, I enjoyed really making that series. And R and Raw is another cool guy also. Just so you guys know. Oh, Eric, you contributed to it. Hey, awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing that. Really appreciate that, man. Really, really appreciate that. Also appreciate Richard and him sharing the vision of thanking our donors. And no matter what tier group you fall in, Richard is one of those persons who is very sincere, very thoughtful about the people who crowdfunded this series. You never know a person, right? But it's always a pleasant surprise when you find somebody just as on board of an idea as you are. When they're just as thoughtful of their audience as you are and are hoping that they will be. And when they're just as grateful for the donors out there in the ether, right? Out there, donors, people just like you and I, who want to see a project like this done and have that content available for people to view. It might seem trivial to some people. Oh, sure, do a video. Oh, sure, shoot a series. Oh, sure, whatever. That's not the way it is for me. For me, that's my craft. And for Richard, by the way, if you guys see him, you'd be like, oh, he's super comfortable in front of the camera. And if it doesn't look that way, it's probably because, I wouldn't even know what to say about that. But I can tell you, being in photo shoots with him, filming him, doing things on the fly where we have to, you're sort of scripted here, but there are parts of a script that simply aren't there, and you have to say it on the spot. And you got to do these things. And Richard is just a great person in that regard. But that's because he has a heart, vision, and mind for exactly this. So again, Eric, back over to you, my friend. Thank you very much. Trevor says Carrier has that ability, which seems unique to those who are very expert in their field of study, to explain the results of his scholarship in terms understandable to lay people like me. Trevor, you're exactly right. And by the way, I'm a lay person, okay? And I told Carrier that. Carrier and I had an interview a long time ago. But just to refresh him, when he got here, I told him, Carrier, I didn't call him Carrier. Richard, I'm doing this primarily for a lay audience base. That's the angle we're attacking this from. So come the interview portion time and any interactive time between you and I, just know I'm a lay person on basically all these issues. So you're right, Trevor Lunn. He's very well crafted at communicating his message to lay people just like us. And the very interesting part of seeing him kind of pick through his content and then say it for the camera is there are layers. You know that there's layers to what he could have presented in front of camera. But I gave him time constraints. Each category of an episode is broken down into 2 parts. 10 minutes each part, because we're going to do interview portion that's going to be at least 10 minutes for the second part. So you already have a 20-minute episode right there, not to mention B-roll, any storytelling or on-the-spry elements that we filmed, which will be great for you guys to see. So he had to be very selective about what he was presenting to the camera and ultimately to you guys as an audience and to me as well, because I had to take that content and then the next day go back and interview him on it. So he knew to see me as a layperson. David says the thing I appreciate the most is that he's willing to travel and speak with without requiring a huge retainer. I can appreciate that as well, David. You know, he helped promote this series. Richard Carrier helped promote this series, which Fully Deconverted is packaging together to give to the crowd out there. And this vision is also shared by Richard Carrier. So he helped promote this, you know, by sharing the links and all that sort of thing, and giving his written input on it. And just the fact, part of what we offer the people who donated to it, just as something fun and really cool, is, you know, Richard Carrier mentions, we already recorded it, so we can't do any more. But he mentions the persons who donated $50 and up as an incentive for their tier level. And he was so happy to do so. Guys, man, I just love working with somebody like that. As well as he and I are writing handwritten letters, thank you letters to people who donated. And let me tell you, sometimes we might imagine, right, that, oh, you know, this person, you know, the most valuable commodity we have and that we're always exchanging with is time. You know, when you've got a lot of demands on your time, and I know that, time is something you need more of. Either that, or there's got to be an exchange of value. Whereas, you know, when I told Richard, hey, this is what we're doing, these are the incentives that we want to offer for people who are donating, how on board are you with all these things? Man, he was fully on board. Yep. Write a letter. Absolutely. Thank our donors. You know, we want to sincerely, genuinely express our gratitude for those people who want to partner in something where it's not just, you know, somebody else making YouTube videos of Richard Carrier, but it's Richard Carrier and Fully Deconverted coming together to present something like what you've seen in the Aaron Ross series, and just give it a little bit more artistic approach while Carrier lays down the hammer with what he does best. And then you get to see an interview portion. You get to see us have fun a little bit. You get to see us walk around a Viking ship, and just do the whole storytelling element. You guys don't even want me to go. I'll nerd out there. Yeah, more famous and staying really humble. I love that character in a person. That means you can work with them, right? How will you decide? Eric Morton asks, how will you decide what music to use as Carrier's bumpers? So the music selection process for any producer is one of the most important aspects, because it's what you hear a lot in film is considered to be more important than what you're seeing. So there's an idea there that a lot of emphasis needs to go into sound design, music, the soundtrack, the music, and all that stuff. So, yep. So how will I decide that? The way I decide that is I consider the content. I consider the audience, and then I consider the message. The content and the message kind of sound like the same thing. They're not really. The content is just the raw data that's being presented in the series. And then the message is what we want the audience to take away from this. So, and some things that play a part in deciding the music is how the series is filmed. Myself as a filmmaker, what I like to do is I like to incorporate some layers of visual imagery and symbols that are meant to convey to the audience, though you wouldn't actually think it like out loud in your head. Something is going on here. Pay attention to this. This shot is being framed a certain way. And then you have to have the music supporting that. So this is just to give you guys an idea of the level of detail and craftsmanship that goes into producing a series like this, or at least what I produce. We all love the content, right? Somebody stands up and speaks. You watch a 10 to an hour long video of someone like Richard Carrier or somebody else laying down gold. That's cool. And I love that too. What I love more though, is when somebody values that content so much, they want to wrap a love story around it. They want to wrap extending values around that message and repackage it and send it back out to the community to enjoy on many different levels. So Eric, a lot goes into the music as far as the important things that weigh on it. But now I got to backtrack on that a bit and say there's really only a handful of things that really add those parameters. But the music is very intentional. If you listen to the R and Raw series, there are tracks that you will only hear in 2 of those episodes. That was a 10-part episode series. By the way, with one secret episode that I haven't aired yet, that I will. Yeah. So, and those tracks are very intentional, and the sound design is very intentional. And I'm one of those persons. I love going that far deep into it. Now I feel like I'm geeking out, guys, and I've talked about this probably way more than I should have. But that's just to let you guys know the level of craftsmanship that goes into this, the heart that Richard Carrier has for this series. He was on board with it the whole time. After we did our initial interview, we reached back out to him a couple weeks later, expressing our interest in moving forward and producing the series with him. He was on board. He said, "Yep, let's do it." We worked out a time frame, and up until present, we executed on it perfectly so far. We're looking for a few more donors to come in to give us that boost we need on the after filming production part of it, the post production. But we are moving right along. So, I mean, if you guys want to, you can share the GoFundMe site, or you contribute, throw some pennies in the jar for us, buy us a coffee, that sort of thing. Every little bit helps. But to transition back after that, if I can tell everybody or share with everybody a takeaway from Richard after filming with him for a week, it's that he really values what he does. Sometimes you're like, why are you doing this? And I ask myself that sometimes. What are we all in this for? Are we in it for conversions? Are we in it for what are we in it for? Do we want to see what conversations can be had? For me, there was no conversation, so I started a discussion group, and it led to this. I just didn't know people were actually talking about it. People are talking about it, right? And then you find people like Richard Carrier, who are like subject matter experts in this field in our community circle here. So it's that he really believes in what he does. He values his message and the effort that he's put into things. He has a sincerity of heart with what he believes he's presenting to his audience, and how to make them better at it. And And it's refreshing when you hear somebody like that who seems so well educated, well rounded, to talk to you about the times when they had it wrong. Because we all get it wrong, right? So it's refreshing to hear those things out of Carrier as well, out of Richard. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it didn't look like Andy's computer was coming back up. I'll reach back out to him, guys, and thank him for the interview. By the way, if you guys want to find Andy, he's plugged in the description here. I'll end the interview here and just let everybody know if you're on board with what Fully Deconverted does, the series that we're producing with Richard Carrier, or if you enjoyed the R and Raw series, that whole sort of thing, you want to support us, you can do this by visiting the site, checking out how you can do that, fullydeconverted.com. You can hit the like button right here and subscribe and that whole sort of thing. And that lets us know that we're doing something right. Otherwise, we shift around to see what is best to bring to this marketplace of ideas and how we can have the best and most positive impact on everybody. Everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. Go ahead and hit that like button if you felt it was valuable to you. I'm Arael Avinu. On our show was Andy Slater. I would have asked him to say goodbye right now, but in his absence, I will do it for him. See you later, everybody.